Welcome back to another conversation for inspiration. My guest here is someone who I think is an example of Black excellence, honey, and someone that does meaningful work in his current community of Indianapolis, which is my hometown, but we'll get into that soon. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? I'm Randall Newsome. I work for Wish TV. I'm a reporter on All Indiana, the 4 o'clock show. So a show about all positive and community uplifting news, good news. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, we picked up a new segment for me. It's called The Great Comeback. It's about highlighting our local businesses, just showing them some love and support during this time. So it's a little bit about what I do.
Awesome. So you get to keep it lighthearted, but also, I mean, like we said, meaningful work here, trying to see how the community of Indianapolis can make a good comeback from this pandemic. So with that being said, how are you doing? How are you?
Ooh, like on a professional balance, personal balance, what we
You can answer that however you want, but I mean, at this point in time, it seems like there's really professional, personal, it's all the same right
yeah, it
now.
is all kind of weaving in together.
Yeah.
On a professional level, it's been a road, and a personal level, it's been an interesting road. There's been so much that's happened in 2020. So many things have kind of flipped everybody's world upside down. Even those of us in the journalism world, it might seem like everybody's all good, but there's been a whole lot for us. Kind of dealing with it, even from my perspective, where people may think, "Oh man, he's having fun. He's telling all these cool, fun stories," but you still have to go and deal with life and everything that's happening with social justice and police brutality and all the things that we're still affected by as Black men. It's difficult to see and still have those feelings and have to kind of shield them sometimes and not really be able to process them like you want to, or feel those raw emotions and be able to express them, because we have to go back into that professional media shell. That's difficult. It's a difficult line to walk, because there's conversations that they get to you. They get on your on that nerve button, and you have to kind of suppress that and kind of revert to having conversations with the people you trust to have these conversations with. Meanwhile, it's like the commentary is out there, and you're thinking, how can people think this way? But you're like, hold on, let me turn my professional back on. It's a difficult, as you probably know, it's hard because everybody has an opinion about what should be going on right now, what should be done. And there's those of us who are directly affected by this social injustice that's going on right now. It's a tough road, and I feel like it's gonna be more of a marathon now more than ever. But at least we know that we feel like we're in the race, if that makes any sense. Like it feels like we're finally starting to take off, and a lot of us are a little bit more alert than we were before, because I mean, this current state we're in as a country, I think a lot of people were kind of asleep, and a lot of people are now like, oh, oh, that's how you feel. And there's conversations, and there's people who felt the way you didn't know, like, whoa, I didn't know. Oh, that's what you think about this, and so I don't know. I think it's sparking a lot of important and necessary conversations that need to be had. So
Yeah.
on a professional level, it's interesting, because even in our newsrooms, it's like, wow, you don't realize how much people don't understand um, the experience of being a person of color, and how much that not understanding means that they're going to feel like they have to defend themselves and their former beliefs or their current beliefs. Um, and people are really offended by the thought that they could be wrong. People don't like to have conversations. They like to have arguments these days. As you've probably seen on social media, everybody wants to be an expert. Everybody wants to be correct. Nobody's just listening.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I struggle with the most, is that I want people to really be able to sit, talk, disagree without slandering each other, without spewing hateful speech at each other. I think that's possible as human beings. And it's frustrating to see where people who are grown-ups can really just resort to talking about each other, calling each other names, just because they disagree on something that's political or something that is just literally a belief system that they grew up with. I'm like, people can really just engage with each other and have conversations again. And I'm hoping that maybe this is a turning point for that. And I know we got a long way to go before we get to that point, but I'm hoping this is kind of starting us on that way, you know?
Yeah. And as much tension as there is right now, it seems like it's going to get bad before it gets better.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, what we need is racial reconciliation, in my opinion. And the best way
Mhm.
to do that is to have accountability and honest conversations, uncomfortable conversations. And like you said, a lot of people are not really trying to do that. And it almost seems as like, I think this way, you think this way. I don't want to hear what you got to say. I'm going to double down on my beliefs and you're going to double down on your beliefs. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of hard for us to meet in the middle. So yeah, I definitely feel you. And I know that's got to be hard because especially as a Black man, everything that you're reporting on and talking about, it's personal. It's not just like I'm telling a story of this. Like
Yeah.
it's something that maybe you've experienced yourself or just something that you can personally relate to. So how do you like cope with that? Like how do you put that professional hat on?
I think what you have to remember is that people are depending on you to deliver information in a well balanced way. And I think now that's more important than ever because, people out there saying fake news and hollering that, oh, the media is trying to do this and that. So it's even more important that you provide balance when you report, that you give as much of both sides as you possibly can and let people decide for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with sharing, in my opinion, your perspective. And that doesn't mean you're throwing out your own opinions on something. I think it just means that this is the vantage point that I'm looking at this from.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel
And
like
that's a challenge. That's a challenge.
yeah, do you feel like there's a fine line between that, between like my personal perspective and like this is a point of view that people need to hear? Do you feel like there's a thin line between that, and do you kind of like struggle with like, okay, how do I navigate
That
the story?
Yeah, it's as clear as I just like told you that. It's just as confusing when I even kind of hear it back at me because I'm like, okay, so they need to understand that this is what a Black man sees,
Mm-hmm.
but they also need to not feel like they're being attacked in a way or that they're being accused of something. Um, and that's kind of a weird line to walk, but it's the challenge that we face and that we were built to stand up to, right? Like we were built to say, you know what, let's bridge the gap of communication. That's what we're here for. That's what we were made to do as journalists. We were meant to deliver information and perspective and let people decide for themselves. Whether it's their own. We're not the moral compass. We just kind of make sure that people have the ability to use their moral compass with even kill information.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, I guess that's the definition, or that's the answer of putting that professional hat on, is like, okay, this affects me personally, but like you said, I am just here to show you what is going on, and that is kind of how you can keep your sanity, I'm sure. I mean, that's the only way you can do it. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, how do you do that in with your job? Like when you do tell these stories, like how do you go about that?
Well, for me now, it doesn't come up as much that dilemma because I've been kind of put in my own lane where I tell, like we talked about, more of the positive and things that impact the community in a good way. So I don't have to walk into an interview worried about how somebody's going to receive it because 9 times out of 10, if they don't like my stories, they woke up mad anyway. Like they were they were already kind of like on the wrong side of the bed when they woke up because usually I'm telling a story about somebody doing something good for someone else, um, somebody making a positive impact on their own community in some sort of way. I've done a lot of stories about, people who've overcome cancer or going through it or trying to raise awareness for something serious that's affected a loved one. COVID-19, of course, most recently. So I don't really get a lot of pushback most of the time on those types of things because I don't really have to, I'm not in that fight if that makes sense, on a professional level, because I've been given the charge just to highlight what's good about this time rather than the controversies that come along with it.
And because the world is in just it's just a tense environment right now, and especially in this country, do you feel like having that type of job where you can focus on, stories of great comebacks, recoveries, do you feel like that's a good balance? Like, at least when I go to work, I can be happy and share really good positive stories, even though, there might be so much going on in the world, and do you feel like that's almost like, I don't want to say therapy, but do you feel like it's good? Like at least you can have.
I'll say it. It's therapy. For me, it really reminds me that there's so much good um, still in the world, still in people. It restores my faith in people a lot of times because there is so much venom out there,
Mhm.
so much, and people are feeding that to their families and their kids, and it is sad to watch that develop into the conversations that people are having today because people are growing up to hate. And that's something that people will swear was buried a long time ago, the civil rights movement. It didn't go anywhere. It evolved. It evolved, and luckily I get to see that the good in people has evolved too.
Mhm.
People have went out of their way to do things for other people, and I get to kind of spotlight and showcase. A lot of times I covering people that they're like, well, I didn't really want any recognition for this. I'm like, no, people need to see this.
Yeah.
People are in need of this right now, myself included. You know what I mean? Like, so please allow me to share that story and allow me to uplift someone. One thing that I'm so appreciative of is that I get to see the reactions from people after they see what I can put together, because of the ability to edit and because of the ability to make the story come to life with visuals. Um, I think people kind of underestimate what you do when you're just a reporter showing up, and then once they see it, they're like, "Wow, I never expected it to be that."
Yeah.
Man, I'm getting this reaction from people. People are coming in, giving us more business. Thank you so much. And you never know with some of those people that are a part of these businesses that I'm highlighting, they've been through a lot. Some of them were, this close to closing, and some of the ones that I didn't get to, they have closed since I started this. So there's kind of a two-sided coin to that, but it reminds me how urgent of a situation that a lot of these people are in. So I don't know. That's what kind of keeps me going when it comes to this is that, people may be one story away from being able to stay open, being able to feed their families and be able to see these businesses survive that they built or that their families built 30, 40 years ago. So, that's the impact that I've grown to kind of love and look forward to every day.
That's amazing. And so that's what pretty much the premise of All Indiana is, that what you're referring to. Like that's the point of
That's
that.
actually the premise of all Indiana, but also like it kind of broke off into what the great comeback is.
Mhm.
So, when my bosses kind of called me in the office, I was just like, oh, because when you get called in the office, you're like, what's going on? What I do? What I do? Did I miss an email? What's going on? And when they called me, it was during phase one of reopening Indianapolis and, in some parts of the state of Indiana after the shutdown. And they said, we have this idea. We think that you are the one for it. Now, out of everybody in the building, they were like, you're the one that has to carry this. And I think it was because they saw what it was like when I would interact with people when I was working on the morning show. And with All Indiana, they saw how I engaged with people and shared their story in a live setting. And they said, hey, we could make this great comeback segment about our local businesses returning and needing the support of the community. And who better than our person who's always jumping out in the community, having fun, being crazy, and somebody that people would be hopefully excited to see.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times people in neighborhoods, they see reporters and news people is like, uh-oh, what happened? But I feel like when they see me, they're like, hey, wait, you're the one, you were at the restaurant. Wait a minute. Yeah, like, man, I really like what you do. I like your energy. And I think that's a good change of pace, especially for right now.
Yeah.
So when they see you, they're like, oh man, I know it's not anything bad that he's here for. It's something good. It's just a matter of where is it,
Mm-hmm. How
right?
does it make
So
you feel? That's gotta feel good to be.
it does. It does. It's some pressure too, because now like people know, they asking me, was the food really that good at that spot that you went to, or man, it couldn't have been that good. You were doing all that. You were doing that for the camera. I'm like, man, look, a lot of these places I've picked personally, or
Yeah.
I've been recommended to. So 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be pretty good. But it also reminds me of the responsibility. Um, I go into every single story trying to make it better than the last one,
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to slight anyone on the quality of what I can put out. I'm giving them my best every single day. And that could be a challenge in itself because you got to stay up, keep your energy up.
Yeah.
And some days you don't feel like it, but you gotta get up ready to go because you never know what that other person could gain from just you spotlighting them and just giving it all you got.
Yeah.
So that's why I have to go in every day and say, you know what? Each time I step inside someone's business, they're getting everything I got.
Yeah. So what is an example of a normal day, which, that's kind of hard to say in this.
Normal? Hmm. I don't think I've seen normal since like 2019, but I'll give it a shot. So typical day for me now. Um, Usually our All Indiana segments were built for me to be live twice in the show, 4 and 4:30, and that was the former load. Now we have the great comeback, so that airs on the 5 o'clock show. So typically, my day will get going after I make sure everything is set up and all the appointments are scheduled for the day. Usually it'll start about 10:30ish. And I get to the door and we shoot right out to our first location. Um, we'll get a great comeback segment shot. One of them will be for the day, and I'll probably shoot another one or another two to hold so that I have at least a backup plan for every day.
Yeah.
Because I got into a situation where I was doing them just one every day and I had one cancel and I was scrambling. And I was like, okay, I don't need to feel that pressure anymore. That's too much because this is kind of a marathon, right? Like this segment, we just got a sponsor recently. Downtown Indianapolis Incorporated is going to sponsor us now. So this thing is going through the foreseeable future, I should say. Like, so at least through 2020 calendar year, and then maybe into 2021, depending on, how long is it going to take for people to not have anything to come back from? We don't know. So until then, that's what we're looking at.
Is that a lot of pressure to find something? I mean, that's your job as a journalist, but like, find something new, a great comeback story every day, especially, in this pandemic when maybe there aren't so many great stories, right now.
Oh, it was when it was the first couple months. I expected the stories to kind of flow in, and they kind of did. People were nominating, and for that first month or two, it was the new thing. People always like the new thing, and then it's like, wait, I have to play this for the long run. Like I need one every single day. And like I said, when I ran into a situation where I had one person canceled, I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I didn't want to feel that pressure anymore. So what I started doing is I started setting people up in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 and 3 a day, and I would be like, that's gonna keep my head above water in the long run. But it was so funny because at first I would just change outfits so people wouldn't think it was the same day where I was shooting stuff, or they were like, wait, did he just wear that yesterday? So I would literally have like 3 changes of clothes in a duffel bag and be running all over the city shooting stuff, and they'd be like, wow, this guy's everywhere. I'm like, no, I was a couple places that one day, but usually I'm shooting something every day. and I'm trying to stay ahead, and I'm looking for um, people with really good stories, people who you know have had their business around the city or have been a staple in the city for a very long time. Places that you might not know, those mom and pop shops that are maybe known on the west side, but not as much as on the east side, um, or those places that you wouldn't expect were struggling, but they actually were. Some people have actually had their business go up. Like, so there's all types of dynamics to it. And my job is just to make sure that stands out because I'm asking them one of two questions. What inspired you to start your business? Because sometimes the story behind it really gets you interested. Or what is special about your business? What separates yours from other people's?
Mhm.
And I let them pitch their butts off. I let them just go, just give me everything you got. Just give me whatever you think is special about your place. I want it to stand out in my segment.
What's a positive outcome that you've seen from showcasing a certain small business? Like, have you seen, like, have they called you back and been like, business has been great since you aired our story? Like, has that ever happened?
Yeah, I've gotten that a few times. People, one guy, he emailed me, or no, he texted me. And he was like, "Young man, good job." And I was like, "All right, I'm glad it worked out." And it's just, he was just saying that we've been getting a really good reaction. They have been around for a long. They were basically an engraving company, an embroidering company that they just take gifts and they personalize them. And they've been around, but obviously people weren't in the mood to do a whole bunch of awards around pandemic time. And as they were opening back up, he was like, we could use some love. And he texted me back after the segment was done. He said, "Great job." And that's the funny thing. Like I was telling you before, it's funny when people are surprised of they expect it to be pretty good, but sometimes they text me or they call me or they email me and said, "Wow, you blew us away. We didn't think it was going to be all that.
Yeah.
We didn't think you were going to go all out with all this, and it was so well put together." And I think that's kind of one of those aha moments. Like, yeah, I did go to school for this. I did, like,
The degree
but
is
I love when that comes out. I love when the personality is kind of pulled out of a story.
yeah.
Like you're really able to kind of take something different away from this segment that you took away from the other one. And some people, they're thinking, "Man, this isn't, I mean, I didn't think my story was TV worthy." And you show them different, and other people see that, and it's just really cool to watch that.
That's got to feel good for you and for them too to see, their business showcase like that. And speaking of these small businesses and mom and pop shops, a couple of the stories that I've seen you do have been, in the Black community. And
Mm.
you've showed like off a lot of really cool businesses and things that are happening in, Indianapolis. And like I said, I'm from there and I didn't even know it was popping like that. I was like, where is this coming from? So you really, like, in my opinion, like shine a light on the Black community in Indianapolis. And I
Mhm.
want to know, is there any intention behind that, or like how did that come about?
There was this actually kind of a torn um, approach to that actually when everything kind of happened with the pandemic and it first kicked off. It was right on time with the George Floyd situation, um, Breonna Taylor, and more that would come after them. But obviously, those were the first two names that really kind of sparked the movement that we're kind of in right now. And I was I was feeling that, but I had no outlets.
Hmm.
Like I had no way to kind of really get out there that I was in the fight too, because of my lane. I was like, man, I'm not in the lane to talk about anything controversial right now, no, regardless of what I'm feeling. So I was like, okay, how do I deal with that? I deal with that through inspiring people, through trying to find the light in a dark place. And I felt like this was my platform to do that. And a lot of Black businesses were significantly impacted more in comparison with um, non people of color. in their businesses, even though a lot of businesses were hurting all the way across the board, but there was a even heightened um, impact on Black businesses. And so, honestly, in the beginning, I was just chasing good food spots because restaurants were the only things open up first. So I was just like, okay, I need to find something. I was just like something where it tastes good and I don't have to exaggerate too much, like where I can actually say, you know what, this is good. And I was really just trying to put string together a few staples in Indianapolis, and the people I connected with along the way by covering all Indiana stories just happened to not forget about me and when I called them back, um, they were very anxious to not only be a part, but I was asking for help. So when I went to some of the restaurants, I knew that they knew others. So I was like, instead of me relying on people to respond to some, some email or a Facebook page, I was like, why don't I just use the restaurant community? And what actually might surprise people is that it was actually a white business owner, a woman who um, she did Philly cheesesteaks. I never forget. She was from Philly, but she just was about good food. So she just sent me to whoever she felt had that, and I would go for them. And then I started calling people that I worked with before. And one lady, her name was Q Alexander. She owns the Missing Brick indie pizza spot, and up and coming spots got a lot of notoriety over the last year. But during the pandemic, they're one of the ones that's actually kind of thrived. But they were really wanting to look out for the ones they knew were hurting, because basically her concept is she makes her pizzas out of the ingredients from other brick and mortars that are staples around Indianapolis. And so that was a way to connect me with not only her restaurant, but like five or six others at the same time. So it's really cool that, and she's also an awesome lady. Shout out to Q, because she runs that business with her sons. And anybody who knows her knows she'll do whatever she can to help anybody. And she was one of the first people to do my segment, and she is probably responsible for pointing me in the direction of at least four other ones right after that.
So
So it was just about making connections. It didn't really start off as just going after Black businesses in particular. It was just starting off as who needs help, who needs a highlight, and let's help each other. As the restaurant community, let's put each other in that spotlight. And with them being the first to open up, that was obviously everybody's concentration. The people who couldn't do carry out at first, who had to kind of revamp their whole way of doing things. So that was kind of how the ball got rolling, kind of concentrating on them, and then thinking, okay, once other people start to open up, we'll open this thing up. And then that's where you see me at gyms and different different types of businesses acting crazy. So um, I was glad that we were able to start it like we did, and more than that, able to expand it so other people realize that, oh wow, this could help me too.
yeah,
So
it's
that's been really cool to see too.
it seems like it became like a domino effect of like, just finding all the
Yeah.
different businesses, and a lot of
It
them
wasn't easy. I felt like I had to knock a few of them down first, and it was like, oh, there it goes. There.
and okay, yeah. And yeah, and speaking of that, like your live shots are so interesting. Like you do a lot for these live shots, like like going into I saw the one with your daughter and the bouncy house, and then you'll be working
Yeah.
out and all that. So
Everybody's a prop. If you're around, you're a prop. That's it. That's even baby girl. She could be.
yeah, how many times has she been on TV now?
Ooh, I'm embarrassed. No, I'm not. Probably at least 5 or 6 times. She was on right after she was born.
Oh,
She was on at the bouncy house, and she was on for her birthday. I mean,
that's so
I don't know if I even know how many times in particular she's but her parents take full advantage of being journalists and put her on TV. So plus she's super cute. You can't be mad at me if I got that right there on
no.
your screen. baby girl. So
And I love how you're always like so energetic, and sometimes she just seems so unbothered.
I
She just,
know. I'm like, yeah, you better act like your daddy is a big deal, okay? He's sort of a big deal.
do you know
She's
who I
like,
am?
nah, fam, you been on TV. That's nothing new to me. So
Right. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, you've done a lot in the community in terms of like showcasing what's out there. You started off with restaurants, like you said, because that was kind of the only thing open. And then, I've seen you do like, businesses that are opening up like gyms and
mm,
that kind of stuff. And not to bring it back to this, because this was fun, but you mentioned like George Floyd and all of that, those protests and everything. And you said that you showcasing these like black businesses was your way of also kind of giving back and everything like that. And just in general, it seems like your job is like your form of therapy. But outside of that, what do you do for your mental health? Like, do you do anything extra? Like, it seems like you're on go, like you're a father, you're working, like you're always busy. Do you ever have time to like sit down and just kind of like take in what's going on in the world and like sort through your feelings?
there was a one instance where I was able to really understand what I was feeling. I kind of sat. It was pretty much during the protests that were happening here, and I just felt like I just needed something to feel like I could provide, um, like I said, a light in such a dark time. And there was a lady in Fishers, Indiana, who is a therapist, I believe, who wrote a poem called "I Can't Breathe."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this moment, I got to tell you, it was so impactful because when you hear that a woman from Fishers wrote this, um, predominantly suburban, community, and older white lady, nicest lady, and to feel her emotion as she read it to me, because I told her, a lot of times we kind of prep for interviews in those situations, and I told her, I said, I don't want to hear the poem. I didn't want to read it. I wanted to wait till I heard her recite it.
Mm-hmm.
And when she did, I just felt all of her emotion and my own kind of overwhelm us both. And I almost cried right there on the spot. But I got through the interview and was able to, put the story together. But as I'm putting the story together, my producer asked me, "Hey, how's it going?" And I broke down. Like I completely broke down in the edit room, and I was like, "She gets it." And if you're a person of color, you know that you kind of are used to people not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard place to be, where you're just like, you're screaming like, please stop this. Like, please see us as human, as equal, as every right to live on this planet as you. And when you've been screaming it so long, you just get used to people not hearing you.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to be able to hear us, it was a an eye opener, and in the best way you could think of, because I was just so in a place where I was kind of losing hope in just people.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of helped, me regain that faith again, and I feel like God put her in that spot and me in that spot just so I could just, there it is. Okay, I'm good now. I can keep going. And and I put the story together, and I was able to just let out what I was feeling. It took me back, and I've shared this with you. It took me back to last year when I had my own encounter um, with the police, um, in a not so good way. I was, at a day party and with a buddy of mine. Um, we go to a party and a fight broke out. Um, I've seen these types of fights before, but this one got pretty rowdy, so it basically shut the party down. We're outside, things are starting to calm down a little bit, kind of just starting to simmer. And we're actually looking for what we're about to do next. And then all of a sudden, um, I hear girls arguing, and then immediately after that, I see an officer pick a girl up by her neck. Um, when that happened, I want to say at least most of the men that were bystanders immediately jolted our attention over to what was going on. It was such a traumatizing sight that we were like, whoa. So we immediately go, whoa, 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 whoa. That's too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's no, 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 no. Not like no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's a female. She couldn't have weighed too much more than 100 pounds. And to see her like that, it was jarring. But once we reacted, we kind of walked over calmly, like, no, 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 no. And next thing I know, my friend, who was about now about 6'3.5", 6'4", 250, hit the ground. And I didn't know what had just happened. And I'm looking down at him like, what could have been that powerful to knock him down that quick? And I realized he was being tased. And in shock, I had never seen anything like that so close. And the fact that it was also my friend made it even more crazy. And I'm looking down and I start panicking. And I scream his name. I'm like, oh my God, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And as soon as I got that last, what are you doing out? I had a face full of pepper spray. I sat down I tell people looking back on that moment, it's so hard because I had to have the presence of mind with all the pain that I was feeling. Never felt anything like that before in my life. I knew that if I moved wrong, that might be it.
Yeah.
If I, ran in any direction, they could perceive me as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how we already ended up in that situation. Um, no one read us any rights, told us what we did wrong. We were cuffed, we were taken to a holding area, and we were put in a van. And the last thing I remember before they took us away to jail was a lady officer asking, "What did Blue Shirt do?" I had a blue shirt on, so my eyes were closed, but I was really like listening real hard, like. And another officer said, "I don't know." Shut the door. And I'll never forget
That is
getting.
amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I was like, nobody has to explain any of this to me. Nobody has to explain what just happened. And I didn't, you know, put the Wish TV badge up and like, hey, do you know who I am? I need to understand how they're gonna treat me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And they take us away. And I remember looking at that charge when we finally got to look at what we were being arrested for. And they said I was resisting. And I was like, I'm not a legal expert, but I'm pretty sure you have to be arrested for something to be resisting. You have to
Yeah.
be under arrest. And so I remember just thinking, that's such a blanket charge. Technically, if you told me no and I said yes, oh, resisting, or you know what I mean, it could, it's a sliding scale based off of what they perceive, and there's no set protocol for that. So that was kind of when it's at their discretion, it just makes it feel like, man, you've got 100% of the power in a situation, and it could just be you reacting to having a bad mood
Yeah.
that day, or being around people you're not used to being around.
Yeah.
And so not necessarily knowing how to resolve conflict in those situations can end up with situations like we have with George Floyd, where your emotions kind of take over and reason kind of starts to go away.
Yeah.
And that just kind of it just kind of made me feel like, man, if I do make the wrong move, we could be a hashtag. I might never know what my little girl looked like. She wasn't born at the time.
That is so infuriating, especially because, like, you're one of the nicest, most gentle people. And even if you weren't, that
Don't
doesn't,
tell people I'm gentle. Hey,
you're savage. Sorry. Yes.
yeah, savage.
But,
Yeah.
and even if you are a savage, that doesn't justify, being brutalized. So that's really infuriating that you had to go through that. I'm really sorry that you went through that. And I hope that you are getting the healing that you need, you know, to kind of get through that. I mean, I don't know how you get through that or what healing that would mean for
I
you.
think you take time and you you got to find your own way. There's no set way to deal with stuff like that because it affects you differently than it affects. Like my friend, they gave him battery of an officer. It was a felony. This man never busted a grape in a food fight.
Yeah.
And you told him that he bear hugged an officer. I was standing right there. I was like, that is not what happened. How can they just put that on paper and make it fact? I was so confused by the whole thing. I'd never been on that side of it. But now that I think I have a little bit of more perspective that I can understand what people are going through. Um, and we always had a different outlook on it. But as a guy who stayed out of trouble his whole life, I felt like I could avoid all the bad situations. But in that particular case, I had never been so confused in my life. I've never been that confused. Like I really couldn't put the pieces together. I had to backtrack, and I was almost reimagining. Well, maybe I did do something wrong.
Mm.
Maybe I reacted too fast. But when I look back, I'm like, I didn't reach. I didn't even reach for my friend. I looked at him, but I knew I couldn't touch him, and I just screamed, "What are y'all doing?" I mean, last time I checked, I can't be that much of a threat by screaming for my friend.
Mm-mm.
But it's just in that moment, I feel like, are we just that much more of a threat than everybody else here? Just because of what we look like. So it was a reality check for me. It was probably the biggest one I've ever had, as far as what we're really facing out there. So, but and I don't want people to have the impression that I don't know a lot of good officers. One of my favorite little league baseball coaches was an officer. I've known,
Right.
I have family members that are in law enforcement, but they do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to fix problems, not create more,
Yeah.
no matter who they're encountering. And so, and those are, men and women of all races that I've had fantastic relationships with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have people out there who just don't know how to resolve conflict, especially when it comes to people of color. And that's why you end up in a lot of these situations because they don't live in the neighborhoods they're trying to police. They don't understand, and sometimes you fear what you don't understand. The difference is you got a gun and a badge.
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous. So at
Yeah.
least to us it is.
And you said it right there because I feel like a lot of people that are like against the protests and everything, a lot of people don't understand what the protests are about. I mean, the facts are that Black people are getting, brutalized by officers at 2.5 times higher than, white people or other uh, non-Black people. But at the end of the day, the issue is police brutality. Uh, and no one should have to go through that regardless, especially because of the color of their skin. And so that's what, this fight is about, is police brutality. And like you said, a lot of really good officers. So it sucks for them that they are now getting this negative stigma on them that they don't deserve because of what's going on with some people that they work with. And I mean, that's a whole conversation in
But
itself.
this is, but you'll probably feel me on this. It's even crazier to be a member of the media during this time because you get it from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You get it from, Black people thinking you're a sellout and you're just trying to cover stuff up and you're working for some mysterious entity. And then you got the other side who thinks that you're just trying to make police officers look bad and you're trying to make it seem like they're all out to kill Black folks. We were just like, no, we just want to live. We
Yeah.
just want to be treated like everybody else across the board. You
Yeah.
know, if there's enough systems in place, correct systems in place, vetted systems in place,
Hmm.
then it doesn't matter if he's the good officer or the bad officer. They're following the same rules.
Yeah. See, and like that's another conversation in itself because I have some kind of controversial views on, with just
Oh, don't get me in trouble with no controversy now. Don't get too crazy over you.
yeah, okay, we won't get into it, but yeah, it's all about like I mean, vetting the vetting process. That's part of it. Like because I just wonder because I know police don't get paid that much, so I wonder what kind of people are you attracting if you're not vetting them well and if you're not paying them well. Like, what kind of people are you attracting? That's really I'm not going to go into it, but that's really what I'm saying.
Yeah, that we can have that conversation off the Zoom. We can
Yeah, but yeah, I'm really sorry that you went through that, and I'm sure that's so aggravating. Like that person, that officer that did that to you, he goes back to his life and nothing happens, and now you're left with the trauma of that experience and having to like
yeah.
make sense of the world, like and then navigating that as a Black man, as a journalist, as a father, like what kind of world is my daughter growing up in? I'm sure that's something that could stress
People
you out.
said I think a lot of people asked me, especially I didn't really talk about it when it first happened, but when I started to kind of talk about that story more, well, why didn't you go after them? I was like, okay, Black man who just was just hitting his 90-day probationary period with his new job
Hmm.
and baby on the way, and ooh, we're going against a whole police force out the gate.
Yeah.
Just doesn't seem like the battle that you need to be going for right then and there. It was one of those things, and a mentor, a friend of mine here in the city, actually helped me kind of navigate that because it was like, I just don't think that's the battle that you need to go for right now.
Hmm.
But I needed that because one person going after them, I don't think would have made as much of an impact as creating more conversations to bridge the gap. Because my story is one of those where I could have been anybody, but I'm not anybody, if that makes sense. Because I'm just like, I'm a regular Joe on the street, but I have a platform, and I think that that's kind of why I had to go through what I went through because I do have that platform. I do want to bring people together, but in order to do that, I need to understand both sides of the aisle. And I don't know if you could really quite understand. I feel like you can have an understanding, but I don't know if you feel it the same if you don't go through what we went through.
Hmm.
Because when you see people hurting and in pain and trying to express themselves, but they don't know how because they feel trapped in their own trauma, I know what that's like.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing, because, we all, I'm sure, like almost every Black journalist went through it this summer, including myself. I mean, that's why I have a therapist now, because I didn't know what to do to make sense of my rage. But at the end of the day, what I've taken from all of this is that, like, despite the anger that we feel, we still have to live to see another day so that we can continue this fight.
Mhm.
Like you said, it's a marathon, and we're just hoping to pass a torch on to the next generation, and hopefully we
Yeah.
move it further.
And hopefully the fire is bigger. By the time we pass it on, hopefully that little torch, that little flame becomes like a raging fire. And you want people to feel that aren't just, people of color. Just when you say the generation, I'm talking about everybody. Like I want everybody to understand that, you know, nobody is free till everybody's free. You know, when you think about police brutality, it should just hurt to see anybody. People throw out, you know, well, they shouldn't have been doing this and that and this and that. I'm like, would you say that if that was your kid? Would you say that if that was your loved one? Like, I don't think you have to understand fully to just be human and just to say, you know what? How many people have seen an interaction where, you know, a non-person of color will interact with the police and go crazy, and and get the royal treatment.
Yeah.
And then you have, a black person just disagreeing or just wrong place, wrong time, and completely, you know, it's crazy to see how different the reaction is sometimes.
Yeah.
And people still choose not to see it. I'm like, you just saw what this man did to this person as opposed to this person, and it didn't, nothing, no switch went off. Like,
Exactly. And to bring it back to that wonderful story that you did with that, you said she was a therapist that wrote that
the
poem.
poem.
I saw that story and that was really touching. And so to bring it back, like that's exactly why, that was probably like a bridging of the gap moment for you to see someone to be like, oh, she gets it. Like she gets where I'm coming from. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like
And
is
people do get it. Yeah,
right.
people out there do get it, but there's a difference between people who get it and won't speak up,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who will stand on those front lines with you, um, when their buddies aren't,
Exactly.
right? Because everybody knows a few people. Everybody has an acquaintance or a friend that will choose not to get it
Yeah.
and say, "No, I'm standing over here. What you gonna do?" It takes a real strong person to say, "This person I may have known all my life, or this person that is a great friend to me, a great coworker to me, they're wrong."
Yeah.
We have a serious issue with, and I feel like in our world, in our country, with people just not wanting to admit I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Let me hear your perspective.
And that goes
Like, nobody, everybody wants to be right. Everybody, and you'll see it, time and time again on social media, the knee jerk reactions that people have because they feel like they have to choose a side. There can just be right and wrong sometimes.
yeah.
And sometimes wrong is wrong. And it doesn't matter who it was done to. It doesn't matter what that person looked like, what background they have. If it's wrong, it's just wrong.
And that goes all
You know,
the
it can be wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. What I was saying, it could be wrong. It could be just as wrong as somebody was selling drugs that same person was wrongfully shot. You can be wrongfully shot and have made bad decisions in your life.
exactly.
Like, I mean, I'm not God. I know I haven't seen God walking around, I'm not, so I'm trying to figure out where all these people got the audacity to choose if someone gets to live or die based off of their background or based off what they've done before. That's what the justice system was supposed to be built for. It's still street justice if a cop is carrying it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like when are we really going to understand as a people that sometimes wrong is just wrong. And sometimes it's not. There's gray areas. Sometimes it's not just black and white. There's two sides to every story. But at the very basis, we have to realize that life is precious, no matter whose life we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
know, oh, so and so did this before. Okay, so send them to court. Don't send them to the grave.
yeah,
So that's how I feel about it. I'm just like, people keep doing that. Well, oh, he shouldn't have been on the block. He should have did what the officer said. Okay, that's enough to go to jail with your life. Not to have it stripped away from you.
exactly.
Treat every person like, what, with all the training that hopefully officers come into these situations with, hopefully there's still the human in there that says, what, my number one goal is to make sure we both go home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that goes all back to, in my opinion, of just there needs to be accountability so there can be reconciliation. And so, like you said, wrong is wrong. Even if it feels uncomfortable to be wrong, let's admit our wrongs, everybody, so that we
Yeah.
can come to
Pride out there though. That's the hard part. There's a whole lot of pride out there, like between politics of it all and
yeah,
I mean, because so much can just murky up the waters. So much can dirty up everything and make it seem like it's this and it's that, when it's really just, hey, you can't just kill someone, even if you got a badge.
Yeah.
Like you should be able to like, but there's nothing for a lot of these guys and gals. There's nothing that makes them think twice. There's no hesitation.
Hmm.
So like before I react in this certain situation, something needs to go through my mind to let me know what if there's a consequence to the action I'm going to take. If all you're going to get is administrative leave, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
You don't face anything.
You're
It's a slap on the wrist. I might lose my job. Man, this person just lost their life.
yeah.
I feel like some of these people need to have, if they're not going to have that moral compass for themselves, they need to have as much at stake as the person they could potentially take away from their families.
Agree.
So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, this got deeper than I thought it would. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Sheesh. Thought we was on here talking about happy-go-lucky news coverage and things.
But I mean, this is the state of the world
It's
that we're
real.
in right now. So
It's
yeah. Well,
real.
and
The
thank
good, the bad, the ugly, all of that.
and thank you so much for keeping it real with me.
Yeah.
And so normally in my conversations, I like to have a segment or a portion where the person I'm talking to can offer some advice for anybody watching. I mean, uh, because of our conversation, you could offer advice for so many things, but is there anything that's on your heart that you want to say just for anybody watching this? Maybe it could be about, navigating this racially tense time, or just, or career wise.
I think we recently lost some great people, um, and I feel like 2020 is full of that story where we lost somebody else or something else terrible happened. But I think one that touched me, well, two, Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman,
Oof, yeah.
and one thing that just captured me about both of them, their lives were cut short. They had a lot more to give, a lot more life to live. But man, the lives that they led while they were here, nothing short of an inspiration for anybody that is thinking about that dream that they just haven't got the courage just yet to chase. 2020 has taught me that
Mm-hmm.
time is a luxury,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't know how long we have it for. And so when I think of those two great men, um, I just look at what they were able to leave here. Because none of us are going to be here forever. And so whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you're thinking about chasing, go get it. Like don't wait for somebody's approval. Don't wait for all the stars to align. If you're passionate about something and it's burning up in here in your chest and you wake up thinking about it, you go to sleep thinking about it, it's time to go get it.
Yeah.
It's time. Like I remember thinking, I woke up one day, I was like, I think I feel a little husky. I think I'm gonna fix that. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple of these sit-ups and these push-ups. And it was so crazy because um that's a little thing, losing weight and getting in shape. But I just kept thinking I want to be around for whatever God has for me. I want to make sure that I'm ready for it physically, mentally, spiritually. And so I would just say for everybody, just prepare yourself for that miracle. People think miracles are just like, they just kind of fall from the sky and those dreams just kind of happen to people. Just prepare yourself for the greatness that you hope to step into.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like, you know, everybody's got that something in them. I feel like, in my life, I mean, all Indiana, this show didn't exist when I got here.
Yeah.
The Great Comeback did not exist when I got here. I just kind of followed my passion, and I was just hoping that the right doors would open, and so far they are. And I don't even know what is after this. I just know that I'm just going to keep on being myself, carving out this lane for myself and seeing where this road is going to take me.
Yeah.
And I really just hope that people find that special thing in them. And I tell, especially journalists coming into this field and this climate, you got to be passionate about whatever it is that you think you're going after, and go for it with all you got, so you know if you want it or not. Because if you chase something with all you got, you get tired and you're like, oh, I'm done. That's not your thing.
Mm.
You got to go for that thing where you're like, I'm tired, I'm hurting, and I got to find a way to just keep going.
Wow.
That's how you know you found your passion.
Yeah, and I think that also comes down to purpose. Like, what's your purpose? What's your why
Purpose.
in life?
Yeah,
If you're
you're
fulfilling
right.
your purpose, like, you will always find a way to keep going, and which
Yeah.
it seems like that's what you're doing. I don't know, like, what you would call your specific purpose. Everybody's is different, but spreading positivity and showing everybody that the world isn't all bad. You've been doing a great job of that, and thank you for that advice. Like, I got to write that down for myself. 'Cause
Yeah.
yeah, this year has been very transformational, and yeah, I can relate to that too. I'm also doing things that I have never done before this year as well. So
This is one of them, right? And this is one of them right here.
here, and so I'm so honored that you were able to speak with me. It really means so much, and I hope and I know that anybody watching this can take a lot from it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you call. I gotta make sure I answer, make sure everything all right with you. So,
Yeah, thank you.
no, thank you for having me on. I appreciate everybody who will see this and watch this. I hope you got something good out of it, and be blessed. Like, smile a little bit. Wake up and hit them with the yeah.
Exactly. With the yeah. See, I'm trying to get like that. Just give me a couple more
I
months.
see you. I see you getting. Yeah, I see you on your way. I see what's
Wait
going
on
on
wait on it.
under construction. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.